I'm going to do a video on multiplying binomials. So we're in chapter 3, section 5, and we're going to look first at multiplying the binomials using the area model. So we can use a rectangle model to kind of keep track and end up with our four partial products, very similar to what would happen if we were to multiply a two-digit number by a two-digit number. So for our first example, we're going to look at multiplying x plus 5 and x plus 7. So we put our dimensions along the width and the length of the rectangle, and we kind of treat it like a multiplication chart. So in this section here, it's going to be the x times x, which gives us x squared. Here we're doing x times 5, which is positive 5x. Down here it's going to be 7 times x, which is 7x. And finally we do 7 times 5, which is 35. So those are our partial products. And then off to the side, we can combine them and add them together. So we have x squared, we have plus 5x, we have plus 7x, and we have plus 35. And these two middle terms here both have a x on them. They are like terms, so we can combine those and rewrite it as x squared plus 12x plus 35. All right, so there is another example down here that will be done extremely similarly. So we're going to see if you want to pause the video and you can try this question and then unpause it when you're done and see if you did it correctly. All right, so for this example, we are going to do x times 2x, which is going to give us 2x squared. We do x times negative 3, which is negative 3x. We have negative 5 times 2x, which is going to give us negative 10x. And then negative 5 times negative 3, which is going to give us positive 15. And just like before, we're going to write these out off to the side and combine any like terms. So we have the 2x squared minus 3x minus 10x and plus 15. And once again, those two middle terms both have an x on them. They are like terms, so we can combine them. So 2x squared, negative 3x, and negative 10x combined to give us minus 13x, and then plus 15, and that is your product, which ends up being a trinomial. We can also model our multiplication of binomials using algebra tiles. So similar to before, what you're going to do is set it up so that your two factors are going to be the length and the width of a rectangle. So you can also bring in your tiles here, match them up, and then multiply them out. And you can see before you start that you're going to have some dimensions here that are going to follow through across. So for example, this length here is just going to be your x, and that's going to extend all the way through. Then you've got 2 units coming here that will extend as well. So this side here has a dimension of x and then plus 2. Over here we have x and take away 3. So these ones are going to end up being not shaded. And I'm not sure if I have the take away 3 part underneath. We'll figure it out in a second. So if we have x minus 3, and we set that up. And if I go through this way, you can see the outline of where these tiles are going to end up, and you can predict what your product is going to be. So these ones here, once you fill in your slots, this tile here is positive x times positive x, which ends up being x squared. These tiles here, this 1, 2, and 3, are going to be negative x tiles because they are achieved, you get them by doing x, positive x times negative 1 each time. Down here, it's going to give you excuse me, a positive tile here. So I need to change my colors. Actually, I'll just copy and paste this one. Life easier. So that one will go there. And we have another one to go there. So we have those negative x tiles. We have, this is going to be positive x, and this is positive x because you're looking at 1 times x, 1 times x for this one. And then finally, these ones are going to be negative because you are taking a positive 2 and multiplying it by a negative 3. So positive 2 times negative 3 gets you negative 6. So these are all going to be white. So just like the last section, you can write out your result. So you have x squared, you have negative 3x, you have plus 2x, and then finally minus 6. These are like terms. They can be combined to give us minus 1x, and then subtract 6 or negative 6. So this should be your final result here for that one. That's your product. So what we'll do here is we'll get you to try this one here, and then we'll do the answer for you on the next page. So why don't you pause the video now and try this one with algebra tiles. So there are digital ones on the Google Classroom, there's a link, or you can get the physical ones off to the side of the classroom. All right, so for this A here, question A, x plus 3 times x plus 5. So we have it set up here. I've put my dimensions in. So all of the things are going to be positive in this one. So I'm just going to start filling in my spots here. So we have an x times x, which gives us an x squared. These ones are going to be x times 1 for each of these tiles. So I'm going to have 5 of them going that way. So I'm going to rotate it and copy and paste these in. And then we are going to fill in these ones down here. So this space here will be filled in by x times 1, which is just going to be an x tile for each of these. Sometimes if I'm doing them, if I'm modeling them on paper, I like to draw a rectangle around them first, and you can see what you're going to end up having to fill in, and then it kind of makes it easier to fit the pieces in. Or once again, you can use a ruler or something and draw in the dimensions. If you were to keep doing it the way we did in the previous question, where you can just put in these divisions and then you actually end up seeing the spaces where the tiles will go. But if we just keep going with the way we were doing it, down here in this final section, it's going to be 3 times 5. So this is going to give us 15 unit tiles here. So I'm just going to copy and paste them down this way. So once you get your rectangle filled in, you complete your partial products. So we've got add our x squared here from this part. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 x going that way. We have 3x going this way. And lastly, we have 3 times 5, which is 15, which shows up right here. The two middle terms are like terms, so we combine them, and we end up with x squared plus 8x plus 15. And that is your trinomial product. Final method that we're going to look at is using the distributive property, which will oftentimes be our go-to later on. So just like we kind of did with the area model before, we can quickly just kind of make sure that we distribute these first two items in the first term through the second one. So the first two terms, in the first set of brackets here. So we're going to go x times x, and then we also have to do x times positive 3. And once we're finished that, we'll move on and do positive 2 times x, and then positive 2 times 3. So we're once again going to end up with 4 partial products. So if we were to do the x times x, we will get x squared. So that's that one there. If we do x times 3, we get plus 3x. Then we move on to the 2. So we've got those two multiplications coming from that first x. That one's done. Now the 2 is going to be positive 2 times x, which is plus 2x, and then positive 2 times 3. So we're coming down here. 2 times x, 2 times 3, which is 6. And we've got those 4 terms here now that we're going to combine any of them that are like. So x squared is on its own. These two middle terms once again combine to get plus 5x, and then we have plus 6 on the end. And that's the distributive property, making sure that we are getting that x times everything in that second bracket, and this term here, the 2, times everything else in the second bracket as well. And that should just be it. So I have another example here for you to try using the distributive property. So we're going to do x plus 4 times x minus 5. So if you want to pause the video, you can try this question and then confirm that you're right. So just like the previous example, we're going to make sure that we are multiplying the x by both terms in the second set of brackets, and then we're also doing the 4 by both terms as well. So the first one, x times x, is going to give us x squared, and we do x times minus 5 is minus 5x. Then we're moving on to the 4. We do 4 times x, which is positive 4x, and then 4 times minus 5, which is negative 20. Our two middle terms are both like terms, so we can combine them to get minus x, negative 5 plus 4. We have minus 1x left over, and then negative 20.